Ja, och då har turen kommit till Gapwaves, and today we actually switch over to English because CEO Jonas Ehinger is going to present to us in English, right?
That's correct, but
Yeah.
we'll do the discussions and any questions in Swedish, of course.
Okay, so you go.
Thank you. Great to be back here. I'm happy to be here to give an update on Gapwaves and also share some of the very exciting journey that Gapwaves is on. So Gapwaves, in brief, and this is a short recap. Some of you may already know this, but Gapwaves is a company based in Gothenburg, and it was formed based on research at Chalmers Technical University in 2011 by Professor Per Simon Kildal. He developed a unique antenna technology that we're now applying in the automotive industry, which I'll explain in this presentation. The company went public on Nasdaq First North in 2016, and nowadays the company is focused mostly on the automotive industry, providing our technology to Tier 1 customers that supply car manufacturers with antennas for radar sensors to enhance the functionality and safety of cars. I'll talk more about this later in the presentation. Gapwaves is completely focused on waveguide antenna technology. Of course, there are other application areas for our antenna technology aside from automotive. But right now, that's where the momentum is. And obviously, as more applications come up in higher frequencies, Gapwaves technology can be applied also in other areas. But right now, it's mostly focused on different types of vehicles. Like I mentioned, we're headquartered in Gothenburg. We're around just over 40 employees, and we're growing rapidly. We're investing quite a bit or a lot in Gapwaves becoming a full-fledged supplier in the automotive industry. Obviously, we believe we can make a difference by offering our technology to customers in the automotive industry. They can develop functions and products that provide better safety. Safety for passengers or drivers in the cars, but also for people on the roads outside of the cars that are not protected. And of course, this is a win-win. It's a win for the industry. It's a win for society in terms of financials, but also safety, because it's a huge cost to society, and there's a lot of injuries and death coming from traffic incidents and traffic accidents. So we have the same vision as our customers. Our customers, the Tier 1 customers, as well as the automotive manufacturers, they of course strive for improved safety also. And eventually this will provide a much better quality of life for us in society. So for Gapwaves, and what is driving our market right now is a number of very strong market drivers, and it's positive drivers. It's legislation on certain safety systems in the cars, like automatic emergency braking. So the car reacts if the driver doesn't react. There are more legal regulations coming in the few years also. There's also a technical regulation that drives the market. So there's been a decision that automotive radar sensors can only work or are only allowed to work in higher frequencies. Higher frequencies means that they can take the true benefits from Gapwaves technology. Our technology, waveguide antenna solutions, provide much better performance than traditional antenna technology. So this is a huge driver for us and our customers, of course. Obviously, car manufacturers want to provide better functionality or more convenience and stronger differentiation in their cars. One way to accomplish that is to offer more autonomous function or more driver assistance systems. And in fact, with the electrification of cars, it seems like there's less focus on engines and fuel consumption, etc. Now it's more about the experience or interface with the car, and what the car can do for you, and how it can assist you to make the ride more safe, but also you can spend some time on other things, not just driving passively in a queue. I already mentioned the technical shift that has happened, and that's a key for Gapwaves. Obviously, all of this combined means that we see a very strong market growth going forward. This is numbers that have been reported year after year by independent market research institutes. And you can see that we're looking at 25% annual growth, or possibly more even. And this is fueled by the technical regulation as well as the legal requirements that I mentioned. Essentially, we're going from a partially hands-off type of driving experience to a situation where you can have complete eyes off or don't pay attention at all to driving. For instance, when on a freeway in certain conditions under a certain speed, etc., then the car will be fully responsible and also fully handling and capable of driving for you on the freeway. You can spend time on emails or watching even movies as you drive. In fact, there are already cars on the market that have this functionality. I'm showing two models here. Obviously, more and more mass market cars will come with this type of functionality. The Mercedes and BMW has level 3 type of functionality. But this will in the coming few years come into more and more cars in the mass market. Gapwaves' automotive journey has now lasted for quite a few years, with a partnership with first Veoneer in 2019 and then with Hella in 2021. Both are leading tier ones, and Hella also made an investment in Gapwaves because they felt that our antenna technology was of strategic importance to them. The investment was in the summer of 21, 182 million. And then we've been working with other players in the industry, but not only for automotive, also in smart city and for traffic monitoring. Last year, we announced yet another large agreement with Bosch. It's one of the absolutely top tier one suppliers in the industry. And we're developing a very advanced antenna for them for a high level of driving automation to be launched and started production-wise in a few years. But what makes Gapwaves different? Well, you can actually see on this slide. On your left, you see a typical waveguide antenna from a competitor. We do have competitors, at least one prominent competitor. And in the middle, you see one of our traditional or typical Gapwave waveguide antenna versions. You can see that it's much smaller. Not only that, it's also much easier to manufacture. It can use more cost-effective materials than the competition. The assembly method for the waveguide antenna on the left is rather complex, and it has high requirements of quality. Gapwaves technology has looser requirements and tolerances, so they are easier to manufacture in big volumes. On your right, you can see our newest addition. It's a new Gapwave waveguide antenna technology, and it's even further enhanced. It's even thinner, and it's using no plastic. It's only very thin metal sheets. Of course, all of this is patented. All Gapwave technology is patented. This new mmWave technology that we launched in September has very strong patent protection, and it's even easier to manufacture than the other two versions that you see on the slide. From an automotive perspective, size does matter, and it's the thinner and lighter you can make the antennas, the better it is, while maintaining performance. And of course, as you saw on the previous slide, the market is requiring higher and higher performance. when we launched this mmWave technology, we got a lot of very strong and positive interest, both from our tier one customers, but also from the automotive manufacturers. One question that we often get is, okay, what about the timelines? When will we see your antennas going into production, etc.? So we've put together this compilation of some of the agreements. Gapwaves now, after only a few years, has partnered with very strong leading tier one providers in the automotive industry. And you can see here that we've listed them. There's also an undisclosed tier one. We've not been able to or been allowed yet to disclose the name. But you can also see in one of the middle columns the SOPs. When will these antennas that we have developed go into production? In automotive, start of production is the key moment. Obviously, that's when you see the high volumes for a number of years to come. The high volume phase in automotive is probably between 6 and 8 years. Before that, there's development. So we're being contracted to develop new antennas for upcoming radar sensors. We've also listed what type of revenues we expect from these antenna projects. And with the earlier contracts, we have a license model. Over the last few years, we've switched to a revenue model where we get revenues from antennas that we oversee production of. And here's an illustration of that. And we've also, and the illustration is that you can see how we move from different types of revenue as the project progresses, becomes an antenna that goes into production. And you can also see the timeline. And typical volumes that an antenna project can have during its life cycle. Another question is, okay, what about the pricing? So an antenna for a standard corner radar that many have in cars already could be between 1 and 2 euros. But you can also see the very large volumes. Volumes here are for one customer that provides their antennas to a number of car manufacturers. If you go up to higher resolution, more capable antennas, the pricing per antenna could be 5 to 15 euros. And volumes quite a bit lower, but still significant. And this is life cycle volumes for only one customer. They all have unique antennas, even if the radar sensor is doing the same thing. And for imaging radar, the state-of-the-art type of radar sensors, they can detect very far away in very high resolution, essentially providing the same information as cameras, could have even higher pricing, again, and significant volumes over its life cycle. So a car might have one imaging radar, 4 or 5 corner sensors, and maybe one high resolution radar sensor. So per car, there's probably around 5 to 6 sensors, as you saw in the example. And they all require their own antenna, of course, to work. So I'd like to turn over to looking ahead. Gapwaves recently made a strategic investment in a company called Sensrad. And we do that because we realize that we can build our antenna business in the automotive segment. But we can also capture other market segments outside the automotive with a complete radar sensor offering. Not only the antenna. And of course, the radar sensor as a complete product has a much higher price than just the antenna. So Sensrad is a company, a young company just formed. It's based on several years of development work in its parent company called Camcom. And Sensrad will offer an off-the-shelf radar sensor, a complete radar sensor, for applications outside the automotive. And they're also based in Gothenburg, in fact, quite close to Gapwaves geographically. There are around 20 employees, and they're catering to other segments outside the automotive. It could be smart city applications with presence detection in a traffic crossing or in a city, so the city can regulate the light intensity and save energy. Could be counting traffic or monitoring traffic, so a city can divert traffic, for instance, to avoid queues and congestion. But there's also other types of applications like surveillance near power stations or critical infrastructure. And radar sensors can provide presence detection, but not who the person is. So it can detect a person being close, but not who it is. So it avoids the data integrity issues that come with cameras. And cameras are always depending on light and optical conditions. A radar sensor is not as dependent on light or dirt on the lens, etc., like a camera. And that's why it's all used in cars as well as in other applications. The market will be quite significant. We see that any vehicle of any type in a confined area like a harbor or a mine will need strong perception of its surrounding in order to be automated. And that means that they will need sensors, and radar sensors will be a base to provide that type of functionality. Lastly, I'd like to also highlight some of the events that are available online, but not least an opportunity to ask questions to me and the management this coming Thursday online in a web cast or a web Q&A session. Thank you very much for the attention.
Tack så mycket Jonas, välkommen. Hur kommer det sig att vi pratar engelska idag? Är det så att världen tittar på?
Världen tittar på, helt rätt.
Härlig
och vi
känsla.
har ett antal internationella stakeholders, folk i styrelsen, men också väldigt många anställda som är engelskspråkiga.
Sen måste jag undra, apropå anställda, du har ju varit vd här i 1 år. Hur har det här året varit? Det har ju hänt rätt mycket i omvärlden sen du klev på, kan man säga.
Ja, man kan väl konstatera att den planen som fanns då har fått revideras naturligtvis, så som alltid. Ett väldigt spännande år. Gapwaves är ju en intensiv uppbyggnadsfas nu. Och vi har ett antal stora spelare i ryggen som håller oss i handen och också hjälper oss på den här resan. Så att det är en väldigt spännande fas för bolaget.
Men är det liksom tuffare utsikter nu då än för 1 år sedan? Hur drabbade är ni av den här allmänna turbulensen?
Ja, vi har haft kunder, inte inom automotive utan i andra segment, mer tech-aktiga bolag eller tech-aktörer som har försökt ta fram egen hårdvara och tjänster. De är mer påverkade än automotive på grund av kostnaden för pengar, räntekostnader och annat då naturligtvis. Så vi har sett att de har haft svårare att finansiera sig och tvingas skjuta upp sina planer helt enkelt.
Men föregående talare här stod ju här och sa att han var jättenöjd med att de nu hittar kunder utanför automotive för att det är lite kärvt vid automotive. Vad säger du? Du låter lite tvärtom.
Ja, vi har egentligen inte sett någon avstängning för oss inom automotive. Vi är med väldigt tidigt. Och jag tror inte att någon tillverkare som vill vara ledande kan undvika att ta fram den funktionalitet som kommer bli lagkrav eller som krävs för att få bra ratings i Euro NCAP till exempel. Och biltillverkare satsar mycket på att differentiera sig och tillhandahålla den här funktionaliteten. Men det är klart, vi diskuterade det förra gången också, att blir det här väldigt långvarigt och väldigt djup kris så blir väl alla företag påverkade.
Om man tittar på det senaste kvartalet, vad är du mest och minst nöjd med?
Som vd så hade jag ju gärna sett att vi har haft fler nya stora avtal. Att vi hade kunnat gå ut med namnet också på den här tier 1 som vi har jobbat med under ganska lång tid nu. Samtidigt så är jag nöjd med att vi kan fortsätta vår resa och investera i bolaget. Det är väldigt viktigt för oss att kunna bli den här kvalificerade leverantören inom automotive. Och det är en ganska lång att göra-lista, men vi betar av den stadigt, kvartal för kvartal.
Sen du berättade om den här lanseringen av mmWave, multi-layer waveguide, och att det var ett positivt mottagande. Vilket potential har vi här?
Nej, men vi ser stor potential, särskilt då med tanke på att trenden går mot större och större antenner, och det behövs större antenner för att de här radarsensorerna ska ge tillräckliga prestanda. Och det finns en mekanisk begränsning att tillverka antenner i plast. För att blir de tillräckligt stora så får man inte den mekaniska precisionen man behöver. Men i de här metallbaserade antennerna så finns det egentligen ingen sådan begränsning. Och sen metall har också den fördelen att den är lätt att bearbeta. Den är lätt att återvinna. Det är en etablerad teknik i hela branschen kring metallbearbetning. Metalliserad plast är ändå väldigt avancerad produktionsteknik.
Ja, vi måste tänka på det cirkulära.
Exakt, och därför är vi ser vi väldigt positivt på den här metallbaserade antenntekniken.
Och nu har vi pratat potential här, riskerna som man ska vara medveten om man går in i Gapwaves.
Ja, riskerna som vi ser, det är ju tid. Det tar tid helt enkelt. Det är inom automotive, på gott och ont, så är det långa tidscykler. Men det är också stora volymer och stabila kunder och en stabil marknad.
Men där har pedagogiken då med den här sliden att
precis.
Förstå. Ja.
Exakt. Och samtidigt så för oss så kan vi investera för vi vet vad som kommer när vi uppfyller de här kontrakten.
Det var en herre som kom fram till mig här innan och sa, är du kvar när Gapwaves kommer? Jag vill veta vad hände med 5G-antennerna. Kan du bara lite väldigt kort säga?
Vi har det under bevakning, för som jag sa här, frekvens, jag tror vi har berört det tidigare. När 5G eller 6G eller vad det nu blir kommer flyttas upp i frekvens kommer man också behöva en annan antennteknik. Gapwaves och vågledarantenner ger lägre förluster. Så att vi ser det som en framtida möjlighet.
Sen, det här tror jag det är någon som vill veta här, något partnerskap med de stora spelarna Ericsson och Huawei. Det känns som du kanske hade talat om ni kunde säga någonting om det.
Ja, det finns inga kommersiella partnerskap, men det pågår forskningssamarbeten. Det gör vi. Men återigen, fundamenta är drivet av det här med vilka frekvensband som utnyttjas då. Så länge man ligger kvar på låga frekvensband så kommer inte Gapwaves eller vågledarantenner göra någon skillnad.
Och där ska vi faktiskt avrunda, men tack för en inblick. Just nu är du kvar några minuter så man kan haffa dig om man vill fråga någonting själv. Kanon! Tack för mig för idag, jätterolig förmiddag. Nu blir det lunch!